Imagine a situation. You've been working really hard, really hard. You've got that inbox cleared, all of those tasks that you had to do, you've got them done, yeah? It's the end of the day. You're looking forward to getting home. Yep, I'm looking forward to getting home. Looking forward to getting home in time to bathe the children, read the stories, help out with those bedtime chores, and then just an evening at home with my wife. Yeah, perhaps I stop at the shop on the way home, pick up a bottle of chilled white wine. Perhaps we'll book that holiday at Forest for next summer. Yeah, it's going to be a good night. It's a good night. Feeling good about this. Get home, walk up the driveway, get the key out, put the key in the front door, open the door, and my wife, she's barreling down the corridor. I can't believe I've had to do all the ironing again. You never do anything around the house. Conflict is with us. Conflict is with us. And there's a crucial moment right there and right then. What am I going to do about this? How am I going to respond to this situation? My name's Denny. I'm a divorce lawyer. Actually, in many ways. That wasn't a joke. In many ways, I'm an ex-divorce lawyer. I only work in something which is called collaborative law. What is this? Collaborative law, it's something of a new methodology, if you like, and it's like some kind of magic. It's amazing. What we do is we take a couple who are even at that stage of separating, and we take them and we bring them together, and we get them to commit to collaborate with one another. And what does that mean, to commit to collaborate? On one level, it means this. We all sign up to a contract. So if my client pushes the nuclear button, or even if their partner pushes the nuclear button, which, by the way, sounds like this, I'll see you in court, that does it, I'm going to make an application. If either of this couple make that application, us as the lawyers, we're off the record. We are no longer working for that client. And that acts as, if you like, as a disincentive. So if you like, we're tied into this collaborative effort. Now that means that we've got to give our clients, and indeed ourselves, some new, more competent conflict skills so that we can keep talking about the tough stuff instead of walking out or storming out of that room. Now, I trained in collaborative practice about 6 years ago, and something struck me immediately when I did this. We went away and we learned these new skills, and I thought, this is utterly stupid. This is stupid. What is it that us privileged lawyers and practitioners, we're able to invest a few hundred or a couple of £1,000s on this training? We take a few days out of the office, we learn these, we talk in collaborative practice about this paradigm shift, which is a bit flash, but it's like new ways of thinking about conflict. And why are we only sharing this with families and couples at the very moment when they've already agreed that they're separating? What we need to be doing is we need to be getting this thinking, these conflict competencies, into families, into our schools, into our organizations and our communities, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years before they get into that conflict situation. So they're already primed. So they've got these skills already. And about 6 years ago, I committed my work at that stage to helping people to deal effectively and creatively with conflict. Now, collaboration is something of a buzzword these days. Something of a buzzword. I was lucky enough to be able to write the book, The Collaborative Law Companion, which meant that I could take something of a disruptive influence and put down my thoughts on what collaboration really means, and then share that amongst the practitioners within this field. You'll note that I've put it in the Southampton home strip. Any Southampton fans out there? Good man. As a result, I've sold no copies of this at all in Portsmouth, but I'm getting over it. So I do a lot of work within this field of collaboration. I still have some collaborative divorce clients that spend a lot of time talking to organizations. What is this structure? What is this methodology of collaboration? And what does that look like in other sectors, in charity, in local education authorities, hospitals, that kind of stuff? And it's good work. It's exciting work. Once I'd committed to this idea of getting this information into the families much earlier, I thought what I would do is I would read the reading list on the course that I'd attended to. Don't ever read the reading list. It's dangerous. It'll change your life. But I decided that I would get these books together so that the clients, I could give these books to the clients. So I ordered, anyone ever have those like Amazon gluts where you just order about 20, 30 books and you get a great big box. It's a joy to open it up. And I had this nice bookcase over here in my office, and I was really pleased with this, and all these books, brand new. And I was really looking forward to sharing this with the clients. And then I looked at it, and I thought, oh, crikey. If I'm going to be able to recommend this book or that book or that book to each client, I've got to read each one of these books so I know what it's saying. So that's what I did. I embarked on this progress of just reading all of this conflict dynamics and negotiation skills stuff. And I thought what would be really good is if I could boil all of this down into a kind of jus, kind of demi-glace, the really good stuff. that's in all of these books? What are these consistent themes that are coming up? And what if I just like reduced it down into a book, and then I was then able to give that to clients? And that was my first book that I wrote, and it's this, Conversational Riffs, which you can see is also up on the screen. And that's what I want to share with you, just so you've got some takeaway that you can take back into your families, organizations, and communities. Conversational Riffs. Any guitar players in the tent? Oh, there's a few. There's a few. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to come up. A riff is like a piece of music. It's a few notes. We find it a lot in blues guitar and jazz guitar. And very often you'll hear a riff, and when you hear the riff, you kind of know what this song is going to be. Yeah? So the piece of music is characterized by the riff that we're playing. And what struck me is that within conflict, we have a very limited repertoire of riffs. And the first one, remember I was sharing that story about my wife? I'll share a few more stories about my family. The reason I do that, by the way, is just because it's really low level and it's really safe. When I say that, I mean it's really safe for you. It doesn't feel as safe for me, but hopefully they're just stories that we can all relate to. The great thing about conflict, it's a bit like a right angle. I was sharing this with someone this morning. One of the lessons I remember most when I was in school was learning about the right angle, and it was amazing because I could take this right angle and I could put it into the corner of my textbook, and it fitted. And then I could take that same right angle and I could put it into the corner of the classroom, this big classroom, and it still fitted. You know, it's great. It's scaled up really well. And the football pitch, out on the playing fields. It scales up brilliantly. And it's the same with conflict. The drivers, the conflict drivers, the dynamics within our families, within our homes, are the same that we see in our boardroom, are the same that we see in our organizations and our broader communities. So remember that story I shared about my wife barreling down a hallway? Can't believe I've had to do all the ironing. You never do anything around the house. That is a attack riff. Okay? So we'll just get the feel of these. How am I going to respond? How would you respond? What would someone say in that situation? Oh, you're nervous now. What's that?
I've been really busy.
Oh, I've been really busy. Wow, we do say that, don't we? That was something like a mantra in my house. Not particularly helpful and not very funny either, certainly not for my wife. But, I would come off with this defensive, off-pat reflex reaction. I've been busy at the office. And it's a defense. What we do when we play a defensive riff is we kind of make excuses for ourselves. And we try to belittle how important the other person's concern is. This is what we do. We say, whoa, you have no idea how big and tall and wide my problems have been today. And you want to talk to me about what? Now, none of us would dream of saying that. None of us would dream of feeding back that kind of sentiment. But the impact of what we do when we come up with these defensive riffs is to belittle and minimize the other person's concerns. Is it any surprise that relationships at home, in the office, in our community break down at that stage? When companies come together or teams come together and they want to collaborate, as soon as they get into this attack, defense, and then regressively the counter-attack pattern, it is hardly surprising that collaborations break down at that stage. Let's have a listen and we'll just see. What I do is I call these the status quo riffs. Any status quo fans in the house? Oh, wow. Whew, I wasn't expecting that. Okay. Has anyone recently looked up the lyrics to The Wanderer? You know the status quo song? It's a straight blues, 12-bar blues, and the lyrics are shocking. They really haven't dated very well, so go back and Google it. But it goes something like this, and it's pretty moronic. It goes like this. Ooh. And then what happens? We do it again. Yeah, we go round again and again and again. So this attack, defense, counterattack goes round and round and round in our families, in our communities, in our workplaces, and it doesn't work. We don't get anywhere. We end up getting conflict fatigue, if you like. And that's when we kind of reach a kind of half-baked, not very satisfactory compromise. Compromise in collaboration. I'm not convinced that there's much room for compromise in collaboration. So this is what I want us to do. Yep, I don't want you leaving this tent. Yep. I don't want you leaving this tent quickly texting or twittering saying, Neil Denny was great. He told us that we could be like Rick Parfitt from Status Quo. Okay? I've done my job in a bad way, if that's the message that you're taking away. What I want us to do, I want to take you from Rick Parfitt here, yeah, and I want us to go all the way to Eric Clapton. Is that all right? Yeah, I want you to be the blues virtuosos within conflict ripping, within conflict competence. So let's have a look. The reason, the difference between Eric Clapton and Rick Parfitt is that Eric Clapton has a broader repertoire of riffs. And he plays them. He uses them. If he's playing Layla for the 10th time that week, he's on tour or something, yeah, and he's a bit bored of it, a bit bored of Layla, so he just throws in a different riff. And when he does that, the band follow his lead. The riffs that we play influence and lead that discussion that we're in. So he plays a different riff, and the whole performance goes off in a different way. And all of a sudden, we've got a unique, meaningful performance of Layla that no one has ever heard before. And we're creating new meaning. Conversational Riffs, the book, is called Creating Meaning Out of Conflict, and that's what we do. So let's have a look. I'm going to give you 6 better riffs that we can play. Instead of the attack, invite a discussion instead. If I got home and my wife says to me, do you know, can we set aside some time after dinner to talk about household chores? Very different conversation. We're going off in a very different direction. We've built in time. My wife is saying to me, how does she do what she does when she says what she says? She is saying to me, look, Neil, I don't need your half-assed, half-thought-through defensive reaction. That's not going to help us. Yeah? We've got time to think about this. Have your dinner. We'll talk about it later. So we build in time into the invitation. Another really neat thing happens with invitations, and it's this. Can we talk about sharing the household chores? The problem is the household chores, whereas before with an attack, the problem was me and the fact that I never do anything around the house. This was a long time ago, by the way. I'm a reformed character. So invitation is your first alternative riff. And then we've got encouragement. Instead of being defensive, encourage more information. Yeah? Tell me more. Tell me everything about what is really hacking you off about the situation. Tell me, tell me, tell me. Yep, I want to know as much as possible about you. Why? Because I'm committed to this relationship. Yep, if this collaborative effort between our companies is going to work, even though we're disagreeing at this moment in time, I need to know what's going on for you. So encouragement. Acknowledgement. Acknowledge the other person. It's reasonable for them to have this beef, this complaint, even if we don't agree with it. Yep, so stop trying to knock them down. Stop trying to silence and minimize their concern. Instead, acknowledge it's perfectly reasonable for them to be really hacked off at this situation. Agreement. This one is so easy. You can all take this one. If you agree with something that somebody says, say, I agree. Say yes. Whatever it is, but make it explicit. There's this thing about conflict. Someone was talking earlier this morning about how complaining becomes contagious. And I was reminded of a joke. 2 old men walk into a restaurant. The first man says, do you know, I don't know why we come here. The food's awful. And the second man says, yeah, and the portions are so small. Complaining just becomes contagious. Conflict does this thing where it seduces us and it just drives us to act in stupid ways. Yep, unthinking ways. So agreement. Build up this mountain of yeses. There's a writer, William Ury, who wrote a really good book called The Power of a Positive No. And he says this, he says, build up a mountain of yeses to act as a dam against the flood of no's that would otherwise contaminate that relationship, that working relationship, or that family relationship. So make those yes points, make them explicit, celebrate them. Agreeing differences is different to agreeing to differ. Agreeing to differ is giving up. Agreeing differences is different. And a story came to mind very recently about this. When my wife, it's my wife again, she's here on Friday, you can meet her, she's lovely. And when we had our first house 11, 12 years ago, it's a small 2 up, 2 down, first house, young married couple, all of that. And every night, I swear every night, she used to say at some stage, it's getting cold, isn't it? Do you know what I heard when she said that? I heard this. You can't provide me with a nice, large, comfortable, warm house like my mother and father. Straight up, straight up. That's what I heard. And, you know, part of me was saying, that's silly. That's silly. But it's still stuck, and I would go off and I'd have a flounce and a sulk. I'm good at sulking. And I'd go off and have a flounce and a sulk. And about 6 months ago, my wife said to me, different house, and, you know, we've come on a long way. I've learned a lot. She said, oh, it's getting cold tonight, isn't it? And I kind of had that same bristly, that same kind of sulky feeling. And I said to her, I said, you know, like 12 years ago when we were in that first house in Bristol, every time you said that, this is what I thought you were saying. And she looked at me, utterly astounded. She said, you're kidding. She said, actually, what I meant was that I wanted a cuddle. You see, when we're in these arguments, when we're in these potential conflict situations, it's very easy to take a meaning or an interpretation of what they're talking about, of what their difference is, if you like. So we've got to feed back. When you said that, what I'm hearing is, or the feeling that I'm getting is this. And just give them the opportunity to set you right. You'll be grateful for it. You really will. Solutions. Those first 5 riffs that we've had already, you can mix and match those, cut and paste them in any order you want. Just keep improvising. Keep it creative. Keep that dialogue going so we keep talking through the difficult stuff. Solutions, keep the solutions to the end. because there's so much information, there's so much goodness in this debate, this discussion, this conflict situation that we're having already. There's a joke that I share. It's a kind of spoof agony outlet. It comes from Viz, so it's not very highbrow, but bear with me. It goes something like this. Dear Maureen, the other day I had to drive to work, leaving my husband at home. He's been out of work now for 3 years. I'd been driving for a couple of minutes when the engine stalled. I couldn't restart it, and it was raining. I didn't have my mobile phone, and so I had to walk home to phone the AA. Imagine my surprise when I got home to find my husband walking around in my shoes and my underwear. As I said, he's been out of work now for 3 years. His confidence is at an all-time low. I don't know how I can talk to him. Please help. And the answer comes back. There can be many reasons for a car stalling after driving for 2 minutes. You get the point. The point is, if we rush in with a solution, if we go for that premature solution, we lose all of that goodness. We lose all of that information. And you know, if we're trying to collaborate with people in our organizations or across teams, yep, then we lose all of that real goodness. So those are the conversational riffs. I hope that you'll find them helpful. Avoid despair and flare, just a quick throwaway point. So what's the point? The big do, little do. My big do, if you like, is working with individuals, teams, communities to enable conflict, not to avoid conflict. I had a tragic email just a few days ago where someone said to me, do you know what? Avoiding conflict actually cost me my marriage, which is a real sad thing. We think we're doing the right thing in avoiding the difficult conversations, but we're not. We're condemning ourselves. So what's the point? That's my big do. A few things were going through my head as I was thinking about what am I going to talk about? How am I going to do this? Do stuff you believe in. I really believe in this stuff. I think it's important stuff. Collaboration without commitment is just talking. So if you're going to collaborate, what does that mean? What is it going to mean when the going gets tough? And it will get tough. Think about that up front. Write your own book. It's been a great privilege for me to write a couple of books. I would say to any of you, write your book. Best advice I ever had, I stuck at about 35,000 words in my first book, and someone said to me, oh, just write it. Just do it. No one's going to read it anyway. And that was just like a great release for me, so go for that. Don't be afraid of changing direction. I used to be a lawyer, now I'm doing this, having an absolute blast. Be curious. This is a point you've already had. Be curious and stay curious. Yeah? If they don't agree with you, this is fascinating. Wow, they don't agree with me. I wonder what they're thinking. This should be good stuff. Note to self, practice the guitar more. Yeah, okay. Now, we were talking about fear, weren't we? And you noticed that I kind of picked up on that. Oh, good. Thank goodness that failure is good. Because when we play with riffs, then we get much more meaning. And it goes something like this. You know, Woody Guthrie used to have a sticker on his guitar which said, "This machine kills fascists." I should have one on this one which says, "This machine kills talks." Because I'm going to try some riffs now. Yeah, and you know, I'm fairly pumped and the adrenaline's going, which means that my fingers go a bit wobbly. So let's just see. So instead of what did we have before? This thing. You don't want to hear that again. That's moronic here. There's no meaning in that. But if we had that same structure, if you like, and if we tried it with some riffs, the problem with this is, how do I play it? Okay, so it sounds something like this. Conflict resolution, take it slow. Yeah, just take it slow. And remember that, like, when you're trying these things out, you're in that situation, you're collaborating, if you get it wrong, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Okay. Okay, let's try this then. That's a riff. See how much more meaning there was in it, how much more detail, how much more enjoyable it was. The little do for you within all of this, what I realized very recently is this, that what I'm doing within conflict is I'm not just resolving conflict. What I'm doing actually is I'm building up the other person. And I'm encouraging those of us who find ourselves in conflict situation to bear with the other person. And you know what? When we do that in those collaborative law cases where we get this absolutely right, when it really works, this couple, even though they are separating, they build up a new community between them. They build up a new way of respecting, regarding, communicating with one another. And that enables them powerfully to keep working together, even post-separation. Perhaps they've got children. Perhaps they just want to safeguard that 10, 20, 30 years of marriage that they've got behind them. So my little do for you is think about this. Bear with and build one another up, and communities will inevitably and irresistibly arise and flourish. Do that. Do that in your families. Do that in your organizations, in your schools, wherever it is, in your communities. But just please do it. And the proof, if you want proof that that really works, is right here at the Do Lectures. So thank you very much.
Well done.